Well, welcome back, everybody, to Tulum Magazine, the show where we talk about transformation and those who are using travel or who have been traveling or are on a journey to transforming their lives. And sometimes there are people who actually help others transform their lives. And so I'm really excited for you to meet Ezriyah Ben Ernst, who is from the Lakoji Transformative Gatherings. And he's going to share with us a little bit about his journey to Tulum. But we are also very lucky to have somebody who can answer some of the most frequently asked questions about Iboga and Bufo. So if you have been on a journey, searching, wanting to learn more, you're going to want to stick around. Ezra, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to know you and to be experiencing and sharing here in Tulum.
Thank you. Thank you. So speaking of Tulum, um, how did you find yourself here? What was that journey like? When was the
It's
first time you heard of Tulum?
it's funny because I was actually thinking about this morning. Yeah, I went to the beach this morning and I'm like, how did I get here? And I ask myself this from time to time, and I ask the same question about, many people that I encounter. So I'd never heard of Tulum prior to, we can say, August 2020. This was in the beginning of the pandemic. And I was planning to go meet with my partner, the
Right.
woman I was married to in Australia. And if I couldn't make it to Australia because they had really strict rules, then the plan was to go to Bali. And the only way that I could get there was through Mexico City. So another brother of mine who's kind of in the same boat, who knew that we could go to Bali because we both lived there at the same time previously,
Yeah.
was like, "Hey man, why don't we go to Tulum?" And I said, "What's the Tulum?" And he's like, I'm hearing a lot of good things. Just look it up. It might be a great place to go drop in. We like the jungle. Maybe we can, sit with the jungle and connect and meet up for a little bit before we make our way towards that neck of the woods, of the world even. And so, I'm working a job. I'm also a physicist by trade. And I was sort of like, you could say, giving myself the early retirement, getting ready to leave and leave the States and everything behind. And so I say, okay, this looks like the only route that's actually available to me. So I'm going to go to Tulum. And then as I started to look into it, I had two dear friends that were here. One sister named Linda, who you know, Linda
Yeah.
Gabon, and then also another beautiful being named Chakalako, and both of whom I had met in Bali, and they're dear to me. So I'm like, okay, if those two are finding a space here, then perhaps I can check it out, and maybe that'll give me the opportunity to see them. So that
And
1 week turned into 3 years.
wow. What was your first impression of Tulum?
When I first came, it was actually really quiet. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I remember arriving on the strip, getting off the bus, going to try to find my place, and it was during hurricane season. It was before everyone started really flooding in. So
Yeah.
I was like, this is nice. I went off to Nomade to the beach, and this is one of the more beautiful spaces here. So I was impressed with Tulum, and I felt like the same feeling that I felt in Bali, in Ubud, minus the waves. That's always been my only thing because I surf.
Right. And so you're no stranger to beautiful places. Was there anything unique about Tulum to you?
Surely the energy, when I lived in Hawaii, Bali, Thailand, I have lived in some really beautiful, breathtaking places, and so there was still that breathtaking feeling. But what I could also feel about Tulum is this cyclical energy, even like a spiral in my gut. I was curious about that because I know when you come to a place and you can feel this kind of vortex energy, then a lot of things are getting ready to manifest, or it's an indicator that it's actually pulling, that you're being pulled into that space. So I felt to explore it, but my plan was to just be here for a little bit, get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But life had other plans for you. Can you
Yeah,
share a little bit, if you don't mind, about what was going on at that time from a personal standpoint or
absolutely. And
spiritual standpoint?
in any of these spaces that we share, like that's my commitment is to really be open, right? So I'm open to any
Appreciate that.
questions and I'm going to answer them from my experience. and my honesty. So for me, I was living in California, and I hadn't planned on staying there for a long time, but I did convert a van because it was a surf van,
Yeah.
and that was when COVID began. So I stayed there instead of going to Hawaii and or going to across the country back to Florida. And then I worked this job in my other profession as a health physicist. Now,
Yeah.
the job put me in a place where I could still surf, work, and then when the contract was over, then it was time to go to my wife, who was in
Right.
Australia. And so there was a lot of of angst that I was feeling, and also, just worry about what it is to be in the States. When I first tried to go, I wasn't able to go. The literal day that I went to the airport at the very beginning of COVID, they shut down the flights. And so I was just in a strange place. So I realized I was in a state of, I don't want to say flight, but
Yeah.
I was in a heightened state, in an anxious state, and also very tired just from the whole experience, and ready to drop down and kind of surrender to a space for a little bit and rest. So I
Yeah.
landed in Cozumel, and I felt that that ocean, and this like what it is to be somewhere else, and like, okay, bro, you can take a breather. And then I went over to Tulum
Yeah.
from Cozumel, and it was peaceful, quiet at the time. And then there was a little bit of buzz, great Mexican food, like vegan options. And then I ran
Yeah.
into my friend Kakalako the first day, like literally my first walk around the corner, and there she was walking the strip. So I realized this is one of those synchronicity spaces.
Yeah.
But I wasn't intending to stay. And I was constantly getting rejected by the Australian government when we were filing our papers. And so then I started to feel a little bit of despair because, I
Yeah.
only made so much money in preparation to go give it to them in Australia because they quarantine you and you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had that set, but I was aware that okay, every time they say no, that's likely another 2 weeks, and my exit is only from Mexico City. So so then I felt like okay, I probably need to start working here
Yeah.
or offering
It was
some
such a
service.
crazy, crazy time. But obviously maybe there was another path for you. So Ezria, because I know you and I've had a chance to interact with you, it's obvious that you are a very unique individual. And I'm sure there's some people as they're watching this and getting to know you and hearing you mention surfing, that doesn't sort of fit the typical cliche that we associate with Black men. So how is it you came to become a surfer dude? How did how did that happen?
So most of my career has been working with the military as a contractor, and that work led me to making a trip out to Hawaii. We're on a maybe a 7 week journey, and at that time, this is when I got married the first time. I've
Okay.
been married 3 times at this point, yeah. And
Hmm.
so in that first marriage, um, we were having a celebration at the beach in Waikiki. We had a small family. It was a destination wedding.
Right.
Cousin Melissa came, a good dear cousin of mine who you'll meet eventually, and another good friend of mine, Rocky. And so Melissa and Rocky are at the beach, and they decide to go swim and take a surf
Yeah.
lesson. I myself wasn't really into the whole thing because the first day that I tried to go out on a boogie board, I got smashed into the wall and I accidentally kept my phone in my pocket. So I've had like a
Oh,
little vendetta.
man.
So I'm a man of stories as well. And so I didn't really try for the surfing at that point, but I always liked skateboarding as a kid.
Okay.
And and so it was time for me to cultivate a new relationship with the ocean. When I came
Yeah.
back the second time, my partner and I had been divorced, and I was working with some of the same crew.
Yeah.
One of the guys who I would call my Hanai uncle, Hanai is like you're like your adopted uncle in Hawaii. His name was Yowani Lanjamak. He's a very interesting Vietnam vet,
Yeah.
and so we were doing bomb cleanup and radioactive material identification paired together. And so, he was a bit of a loose cannon, but a really wise, tapped in individual. And he kind
Yeah.
of took his wing and he said, he talks like this. He's like, young man, I feel like surfing would be good for you. And I'm like, I'd like to try. And he's like, well, you're going to make some commitments if you try.
Oh.
And I said, okay, all right, what's the commitments? He's like, every day after work, we go to Chun's, which is where I learned to surf on the North Shore. And he gives me his board. He won't let me take a leash on the board. It's a 13-foot board, and it's a beautiful, beautiful board made of koa wood, which is like a mahogany, and also
Right.
represents
Wow.
royalty. And so there's a
Yeah.
Cadillac surfboard and also a rescue board. So he says, you take this board out and you guard it with your life. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, no, listen, if there's a scuff on this board, I will kill you. And
Oh,
he's
damn.
sincere about it because I'm with men who he was a gunner as well,
Yeah.
like in the helicopter. So he's done some things. And I'm used to that kind of crowd. And I'm like, all right, that's enough incentive for me to really try my best. And so he just every day after work, change clothes, get in the water, and he hardly gave me any lessons. So a lot of my journey was really just figuring out piece by piece.
Really?
For
Yeah.
some reason, I just didn't take the time to learn or to watch videos on it. So it was just me connecting with the ocean brute force. And I just remember catching that first wave, and it was like all the things that I was navigating from my divorce, my depression at the time, all my fear, everything just paused in that one moment, and there was this stillness and this connection with the ocean and this floating feeling. And I fell and I cut myself because there's a lot of reef there. But
Yeah.
I was like looking at this blood dripping down from my hand, and I'm like, you know what? Worth it. Back at it again.
Just that brief moment had been worth it.
Worth it.
That
It's
moment.
worth it every time. Yeah. And so this is like for me, I was like, wow, life, wow, Mother Ocean. Like you just give me this gift. You'd let me enter you and surf you and connect, and you carry me this way back to the shore and allow me this timeless, this flow state that people talk about. And they're long waves. So it's not like I popped on a wave and then that's it. Like you could catch a wave from far back all the way to shore and have that if you could stay on the board,
Yeah.
not crashing anyone and
Wow.
I just respect the lineup. So I didn't realize how special it was for me to learn to surf at the North Shore and to have an
Yeah.
old man like that. He's 60 years old when he taught me how to surf.
Wow.
Fit.
Do you think there is some sort of connection between the dangerous work you guys were doing versus, the therapeutic nature of surfing, or are you guys
Yeah,
just searching for a thrill? Like,
sure. I could see that. I don't think all of us were necessarily searching for a thrill, perhaps, but
yeah,
we're all thrill seekers. Yeah.
yeah,
And we just, for instance, like you take the job and do whatever. And I definitely was like that, where I was like, oh, this is dangerous, cool. But that was more, I would say, the silliness of youth.
yeah,
I wasn't self-aware and I think I wasn't aware of my value as a person and wanting to protect myself. So it was like, oh, that's cool. These guys are cool. This work sounds cool. Oh, we can't tell anyone. Cool. And then I feel like the surfing was a catharsis and it was a soothing, healing gift to me in my life because it's taken me through a lot of things. There's been times when I've given up on life and even given up my surfboard, when I was really suicidal. And then
yeah.
I went to Bali and spending that time in the ocean brought me back the taste of joy, put a taste back in my mouth that, I'll never let go. Yeah.
I love that analogy. Of getting a taste back in your mouth, a taste for life. Um, how did you come to um, know Iboga and the practice of Iboga?
It's very
How
funny,
did that
you know.
happen?
So before I head off to Bali and after my second divorce, so my life
Yeah,
is filled with a lot of stories that are attached to my journey in love.
right.
Someone told me that my chart is in Venus, and the explanation they gave me was that you're going to learn, and you've learned so much in this journey based on your desire and the fact that you go into that desire for love 2 feet forward, and
Yeah,
so you have that experience. So I had a lot of interesting disillusionments at one time in
yeah,
2016. Just to list a few, my mother died. At the same time, I found out that I was in a cult. At the same time, my daughter became more estranged from me, which is fair enough. At the same time, our business crashed. Or I had to dissolve the business because of what I found out, which is a nice
yeah.
international business. And then my wife left me, and I was
Wow.
on another island. So it was like a lot of these things that I had no choice but to face and it was just me, so it was really heavy. And I end up doing some therapy because I was suicidal, and my brother happened to catch me at the right time. And then I'm also an action person, so it was like,
Yeah,
okay, I said I wouldn't kill myself, but really I decided I'd kill myself in 3 years, and then create a bit of a time capsule because I've had other people in my family kill themselves. and everyone didn't know why. So I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? Everyone is solid. I know my mom just died. That's heavy. Why don't I not be selfish? I can also kill myself later. So I'm just gonna go and put my life in a certain order and really see what this is about. At least I'll have that experience consciously. And
Yeah.
I ended up opening up. And so I did a past life regression. And then another partner came into my life with plant medicine. She's a pretty well-known, uh, I want to say sorceress, but she's a bruja. But beyond the bruja, she's a healer and a medicine woman. And she introduced me to ayahuasca and San
Okay.
Pedro, peyote, washuma, and mushrooms. So she brought all these things into my life. And she was the first person that ever mentioned Iboga, but in brief and with a shudder. So she was like, yeah, there's this medicine, and then there's another medicine called Iboga. That's how she talks too. And I thought I didn't pay attention to it, but what I remembered was how scared she was of it, you know,
Really?
because in what most people know of it is in the ceremonies and the initiations. If you die in the initiation, you die. That's it. You're meant to die.
Yeah.
When it's a many people express it being a harrowing experience, you know, and it is a medicine of truth, which does have a personality, as they all do.
So this might be a good transition to the questions that people have. So, and just so folks know, I'm looking at the most commonly questions on, asked online, and hopefully they're representative of what, you as somebody who's watching this may ask. But if we don't ask a question that you have, this will be posted on YouTube. So ask your question in the comments, and I can always reach out to Ezra for an answer. So why don't we start with the most basic? Like, what is Iboga?
It's a beautiful question. So boga is a shrub, the plant itself, right? It's beautiful. They can get big, but really probably about this high. They, as a regular shrub, can live 60, 70,
Mhm.
80 years if it's not, molested and taken before its time. And the medicine itself is from a root bark, which means it's the lower part of the tree getting close to the ground. This
Okay.
tree fruits a beautiful orange fruit with a seed that actually looks like a walnut or actually the human brain, but more so
Hmm.
like the brain than a walnut does. And it's not really eaten, but everything has its purpose with these plants. And so we get Iboga from Central Africa, closer to the equator, close to the
Okay.
Congo, specifically a place called Gabon.
Mhm.
And this plant, this root bark, is ingested in ceremony and in and out of ceremony, and it has these specific effects on the body. One of them, at a certain dose, is its psychoactivity.
Okay.
Okay, and so it can induce uh, basically, you know, a very interesting state of stillness and of seeing certain things and having an experience, cleansing the body as well, and then opening up to a new way of being. And I want to leave more questions to come because we'll
Yeah.
unfold more about Iboga. Yeah.
So, is Iboga, how does it differ from something like ayahuasca, for example? Or how
Well,
is it similar?
okay, so ayahuasca, we can make a comparison just for the sake of the chit chat that we do in
Yeah.
these communities where we say something has a feminine quality and a masculine quality.
Okay.
So Iboga is known to have a masculine quality, whereas ayahuasca is more of a grandmotherly quality. So when you think of a stern grandfather who tells you exactly what it is, this is how you
Yes.
would think of Iboga, even though it's speaking to you from your inner voice. So it speaks directly to who you are. And it's the concern of this consciousness that's working through you is truth. And it delivers it in a very direct way. Whereas in ayahuasca, you may see different visions, different things that are can be harrowing as well and are up to interpretation. Whereas with Iboga is not waiting for any certain interpretation. It's telling you, hey, this is what's been going on in your life. Do you really
So
want
let's
to shift here? It's
let's
very
double
direct.
click into that, because one of the
Yeah.
most, like, 200 people every month ask, what is Iboga used
Uh-huh.
for? Like, what is it used for? So,
Ah,
is it a therapy? Is it you refer to it as a
this is a great question.
plant medicine. What is it used for?
Yes, I do. I think and this is the great question because it is a plant, right? It is used in therapy. It's used in healing. It's used in detoxing. It's
Okay.
used for deep journeys within the subconscious. You can even say it's as much as to say it's for a birth, death, and rebirth experience for Iboga. I use it personally, and it's not known for this, but I use it to cure my cancer. I had to basically family come to me in a dream and say, you need to sit with this and you need to go to Africa. Because I could have gone to a place here in South America. I could have gone to, I don't know, uh, Costa Rica and even
Yeah.
Mexico. But I was called to go back to the root of where the root is found. And mind you, it's also found in Cameroon and other areas that are close. But it's heart and centers in Gabon. And so
So you went back to Gabon,
I went back
and
there.
what kind of cancer, if you don't mind me asking?
So I had testicular cancer. And then
Okay.
I did radiation beam therapy. Now, secondary effects of some of these therapies and the spread of this cancer, when it metastasizes, it can go into your lymph nodes.
Right.
So then it's a retroperitoneal area where, if this continues to spread then to the lungs, then to the brain, etc., then it's trouble for me. So the second journey was in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how, when you went to Gabon, was it to seek healing for the cancer, or was it to train? What was the experience in Gabon?
Well, me, my intention was to go there and heal or die. If I
Right.
didn't make it through the initiation or, things didn't work out, at least I made it back to Africa as that was my first trip to Africa.
Yeah.
And the truth is like I'm always going to speak the truth of how I think.
Yeah.
That's where I was at with myself. I didn't really tell anyone. I only told four people, and I only mentioned it once or twice. But the goal was to get to Africa to sit and many things unfolded to make it possible because wasn't a cheap trip. It was close to a $10,000 investment, to get out
Wow.
there and to have the experience to stay there and then to sit with the medicine. And I chose to stay longer. So I sat with two other medicines in preparation to strengthen myself and to cleanse. I sat with a medicine called Kambo, which is from a frog, and then I sat with a medicine called Bufo from Bufo alvarius. This one was from a toad. It's a secretion that many people call a venom, but it's not injected through fangs, but it could be a poison based on,
Right.
but poisons have definitions. I'm a stickler for definitions. So I prefer to say the bufo from the toad is a secretion that can be protective, but it's not a venom per se, even though people call it a venom.
So that was in preparation for the Iboga.
Yeah.
So you kind of had this graduated process. What was the purpose of the combo? What was the purpose of the bufo before you did the Iboga?
So it's funny that all of this felt really spiritually guided, and the
Yeah.
combo will strengthen you. This is warrior medicine, where they burn. I don't know if Momo happened to share about combo, but really what they do is they have this secretion from a frog in the Amazon, a tree frog, and this frog really doesn't have any natural predators. And so when you apply this after removing a very thin layer of the top layer of your skin by burning, and then they take this secretion that's on a wood stick and they scrape it off, and sometimes it's mixed with saliva, sometimes it's just mixed with water
Yeah.
and applied on these dots that have been opened up, these gates. The
Yeah.
medicine absorbs into the body and it creates a powerful lymphatic system flush and cleanse. And then
Okay.
it also creates something else to the kind, but it's in the energy body. So they like to say pneuma, which is, it can be like heavy bad energy gets cleansed. And
Penuma.
there's a correspondence between what you do in the body and all of your bodies, all of your energy
Yeah.
bodies. Yeah. So I did
So
this in
that was the combo.
combo, yeah.
Okay.
And then after the combo session, approximately 34 dots in a 3-day period, which could be called an inoculation,
Wow.
meaning you have this experience of cleansing. I went heavy, you know, and it was amazing. And that was probably difficult because I think I had maybe 20 dots on my last day. And after that, in the evening, I sat with Bufo for the first time. And that was just like talk about, 1, 2, 3 step experience to do those medicines and then to go to Africa to touch my feet on that land and to experience this kind of ceremony, the kind of which I've never seen since then. Yeah.
Wow. And so, um, just because there are probably going to be people who are watching this who are seeking some healing from some sort of, illness, or be it mental or physical, your choice to go this route versus to go the traditional, um, you know, route. Uh, why did you make that choice? What was it about these medicines that made you, you know, decide that that's what I'm going to do?
Well, for one, they called to me, but the other thing was that my mother was the one who put me on to more natural medicines. And
Mm,
so I had cancer first, and then my mother had ovarian cancer. So
mm,
my mother, my grandmother, we all had cancer in the same space. And I'm someone who pays attention to patterns. But
right.
back then, I was more just in a bit of a survival mode.
Yeah.
After I beat my cancer with the Western medicine, and I got to taste what it is to sit with radiation therapy, and I had complications after that.
Mm,
When my
mm,
mother got her cancer, she beat it for a little bit, and then it came back strong. So, so I had gone off grid, and I was living in Big Island for a time, and she knew, and she had found out something about other types of treatments. I think it was ayahuasca,
yeah.
but my ears were kind of close to that at the time. I was more, you know, more involved in my priesthood journey with the
Yeah.
Israelites, and seeking to just to go deep, but in another way that was more rigid, which was really fruitful for me, you know. But I wasn't sure what she was talking about, and I feel like I dropped the ball in terms of looking into it because now I find out the stuff that she was looking into it was in my literal neighborhood. It was 7-minute drive for me to go and to explore in a
Wow.
space. And so
Yeah.
she didn't press for it and I didn't understand. And then she began other treatments. And so there wasn't any digging into it. And so she passed, she transitioned, but a lot of it, of course, was due to wanting to find other ways to deal with this using Western medicine and the chemotherapy. I didn't do chemo, I did radiation therapy. And both
Yeah.
my mother and myself were radiation workers. I'm a radiation health physicist by trade, and my mother's worked in mammography and all the different various forms of X-ray technology, for her profession. So yeah, I just when the opportunity came to try something different, I thought, okay, I had an excellent team of people helping me with an oncologist and whatnot, helping me when I was in Hawaii from the
Yeah.
Queen's Medical Center. And, yeah, I was really well taken care of, which I love and appreciate. But it still didn't change what I experienced in my body. And I thought, now that I've sat with these medicines, I've journeyed, I've had this experience, I had sat with ayahuasca, uh, I think twice at that time. And then I had sat with mushrooms probably 7 or 8 times, just journeying by myself in Thailand. So I started to develop a relationship with this consciousness expanding other consciousnesses.
Yeah.
And I was listening. I've always been someone who can interpret dreams. And so my family was coming to me when I was starting to feel ill and emotional things were coming up. And I decided to just say, okay, they're speaking this word to me. And I just shot for Gabon. But then the other medicines came as well in preparation. So, and
Yeah.
these are medicines I work with now, which is very interesting.
So, what was your experience in Gabon like? Your first Iboga
Yeah.
experience. What was that like?
It's interesting because I went with my father, so my family wasn't with me for most of the beginnings of my first journey with cancer. And
Yeah,
so he decided to accompany and support and, witness the initiation and even partake in it to an extent. And so that was epic. Of course, for
yeah,
me at first, I didn't want him to go because he was like in his 60s, and I don't know how difficult this is, and I need to focus on
yeah,
me healing and blah blah blah. But there's nothing like having a rites of passage together and to see how they respected my father, and also to have that experience of being back in this place where he could be like, wow, this feels like Haiti, and there's something so familiar. And
yeah.
later to find out that we have family line. That's where we were from beforehand. Now,
Wow.
again, this would be according to African ancestry, and I'm not super big on a lot of the genetic testing nowadays, but I was called there,
Yeah,
so I had something else calling me before, and I think I wouldn't have given that any thought if not for getting that testing and then being connected to those people, because the connection that I have with the medicine is like it's familiar. My experience wasn't is not the same as what many people talk about. This medicine came and it reached and it pulled me across the ocean. And then it allowed me to connect with my father and heal many things at a deep level. It allowed me to have the rites of passage that many men will never experience in this life, unless they allow me to help them experience it if they're so open
yeah,
to it, you know. And we went at a time where the world was a different place. And then
yeah,
myself going back to Africa as like for all intents and purposes an American, a Westerner, and to be in a space where you had kind of a combined Western and African. And by African, I mean Western, and then also Gabonese
yeah,
and Fung. I was with the Fung tribe, are people that came into the land later, and to meet someone of the Twa, who people call pygmies, and so to be around ancient knowledge and current practices, and to be cared for. I've never been cared for by men in the way that I was cared for during that initiation.
yeah,
and and I can tell you, just what's epic because I've sat in some other experiences that are more African, more of that continent's vibe. But this was like the drums and the intention of an entire village for the healing of many, of three people and really two people, right? My dad, my other brother Kevin, who was there, not my brother,
yeah,
but he's my brother now. He was going for the experience. I was going for a healing. And so all of you have a ceremony where there are many people there together, and everyone wants their little thing, and they split the attention up. But
yeah,
in my case, I had villages of people, you know, like large amounts of people showing up to participate in this for the love of what they do of that Bwiti tradition, and then to focus their energy on connecting with the medicine and to providing me the healing. And so just like what we'll see, I have it. There are other folks. I'm trying to think of this man who's very well known. I believe Joe Dispenza, and he speaks to like his
yeah,
healing. He brings people
yeah,
together. And in
yeah,
Chinese hospitals and other places in the world, they know how to channel energy and prana and then
yeah,
send it somewhere to help things move and heal. And so what I got to experience, and this is Gabon, which is also called the Tibet of Africa, and really the Tibet of this region of the world. But
yeah,
people give things names. So I just experienced something that I never knew that I could experience in this life. I was taken care of by men in a way that I've never been taken care of, so it helped to heal a lot. And I had a piece of being able to walk by the ocean, by the water, and to still witness some of what colonialism has to be
yeah,
tested, my character tested in certain ways, and to be cared for, and to experience the love of wow, to come back. And so it's like I was willing to die, and I came back to life in that space,
wow.
in
So
such a perfect fashion, in truth.
I can't imagine what that was like. It sounds incredible. So you're very close to the notion of participating in ceremonies, but there's some people who have no idea
Uh,
what that is like.
uh,
So give give people a sense very practically of what they can expect if they plan to participate in an Iboga ceremony.
Well, this is one for sure that you'd want to be called to. See, what I participated in was an initiation, excuse me, but I have held ceremonies for people's healing. Many
Yeah.
people, if you hear about the medicine, I'll just give you some context. It's utilized, it's illegal in the States and many other countries, but it's utilized for drug addiction recovery, specifically
Okay.
from opioids. Now, I've utilized
Okay.
it for that, to help people with that, as well as for ketamine and some other addictions. I don't know about alcohol addiction. I feel like Bufo seems to work a little bit better in that space.
Okay.
But for nicotine and these other things, this medicine is epic in closing the gap that's created by the addictive tendencies and giving a person a shot at what it feels like to not have that pull, and then for them to create something, to create a new behavior in the time that they have.
So is it something that's ingested or smoked, or what is the process like?
Yes, beautifully. It's ingested. It's very bitter. I work with what they call the wood. Okay, so
Okay.
there's a couple of different ways that someone would ingest this. There's a way that they take and they remove it to just get ibogaine, which is the
Okay.
most one of the more active alkaloids of the
Okay.
medicine. And that's really what's working on a lot of the addiction. There's the full alkaloid experience, which is what you have when you deal with the wood, although it can be hard on the stomach,
Okay.
right? And then there's you can do the extract, which is a lot softer on the stomach. You can combine them if you so choose as well. And so I do it the way that, I experienced it, and it's a slower process. And but then people get the full alkaloid as well,
I
which is
see.
you're getting the whole essence of the medicine. But that's just my preference. I'm open to the other ways, but this is what I've been called to do, and this is how I connect with it. Someone that's wanting to go for the ceremony, it's really going to depend on where you're going and who you sit with. A lot of
Okay.
things change in the introduction of, US currency, foreign currency into these places. And
Yeah.
so previously, maybe you went and sat, you were called somehow to go find this obscure place and have this experience with the medicine. And it was doable, but currently the way things are that you end up, you're paying for the entire group of people to come and spend time with you. We have to
Yeah.
deal with folks' different demeanors. This medicine doesn't change a person. It enhances who you are. So it's up to the individual to look at their character traits. And
Mm.
this, I would say, with all medicines and all those who are holding medicines, to be mindful of the character traits that you have and to seek to uh, come into some kind of balance, some kind of wholeness in that space, ma'at even, right? And expand and grow your character. Because if not, you can journey with these things, and the next thing you know, really your base level, the basis level of your character is what's going to be expressed.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
with these medicines, especially ones such as Iboga, it opens you up to growth, but you also have to do the work. So people come for many different reasons. Could be for a healing, could be for rites of passage. There's two different types of ceremonies, and I have them combined. So
Okay.
the Soko is what I did. And I believe the Sumba, if I'm saying it correctly, is one that you might have as a rite of passage, or people just want to know. So mine was like a rites of passage as
Okay.
well as, for healing. And
And was that over a number of days, or was it one big
it was over a
ceremony?
number of days.
I
So
see.
I was there for 3 weeks.
Wow.
But this can be done in 3 days, and sometimes it's a week, 3 or 4 days. The reason is because, okay, this medicine, some medicines have a six hour journey. This can be a 24-hour, 72-hour journey. And so
Ah,
it
okay.
really allows, and it's also, it can sort of incapacitate the person physically to really
Yeah.
allow for the things that need to come up to be seen. So I think a lot of people find it harrowing because there's no escape, you
Right.
know, but,
Like
but
you can't
self,
move, or you're not in a position
it
to
causes ataxia. So yeah, you can be paralyzed for a little bit, depending. So then it also necessitates really deep care. Now, what I'm speaking to is when you're receiving what's called a flood dose.
yeah.
There's a dose that is essentially a controlled overdose that we're taking a person through with
Yeah.
Iboga. And it doesn't always have to be that, but for a flood dose and an initiation, which is something maybe you only do once in your life, you
Yeah.
know, uh, it should do the trick. So I've taken some people through flood doses, but not to the caliber of my initiation.
I
Because for my
see.
initiation, we were in the jungle by the ocean. There were multiple people there. Many things were cared for. And, so what I'm doing is I ask permission. There's two things that I asked for before I went to Africa when I spoke to the Nganga, which many people would say shaman, but he's an Nganga,
In
like a priest.
Ganga.
Nganga,
Okay.
yeah. My nose is a little stuffy from the, mold in Tulum life.
Okay.
But at least you're able to repeat it perfectly. And
Yeah.
so he's there. All of us become this. We start off as a Bonzi, which is like basically a new initiate, and then once you've gone through your initiation, then you can have the title Ganga.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
because you've gone through the initiation. And so for me, they would only share the medicine. They only give it to you if you choose to go through the initiation.
Okay.
And that's what I did to receive it. And you know, um, wow, as they say.
Um, so you answered one of the questions that's commonly asked, which is how long does Iboga last?
Yes.
So it sounds like it's in your system. Uh, did you say 24 to 72 hours?
Yeah, depending on your flood dose. And then
Okay.
the other thing that I was gonna say is that, I went there wanting to heal myself, but my other request was I said two things because I started to do a little research about the medicine. I said, well, I'm around a lot of people with PTSD and addiction,
Yeah.
and so if it's possible, I would love to learn how to work with this medicine at
Yeah.
some point. And if I'm healed, I also want to share that medicine, healed or not. That was my
Yeah.
intent. And this medicine honors the intention. So for me, I waited because I also have kind of run from serving it per se, but knowing that maybe I could take people on journeys to this
Yeah.
place. Yeah. And but things shifted. And so it wasn't until I got to Tulum which that I really began to serve it. But I journeyed with the medicine for almost, we could say close to 8 months to a year straight.
Wow.
I took a
Wow.
pause. I was given some and I took it with me. And I worked with it in silence in Bali, navigating, doing my own little journeys, trying to understand what it was to be. And so I'm a bit of a psychonaut in my own way, but
Yeah.
also really, really wanting to discern and helping people. I didn't have someone to help me with integration. And so that's
Yeah.
really why you hear me say that so much in town. And most of the events are integration events because when you open up, there needs to be a space for things to settle. The dust always must
Yeah.
settle. Yeah,
So that's the post to going through an experience, an initiation or a ceremony. What
yeah.
happens after is also important.
It's the most important. And for Iboga, they say that just to add, so this is a rich rabbit hole that we could go down, but of course we just
Yeah.
give people the little bits. For many medicines, maybe you think, oh, the integration for Iboga said one journey, 2 years to integrate that process while paying
Wow.
attention. But life happens like this. So we can also
Yeah.
say that you had an experience, and we're always having experiences that need to be integrated. So what it made me is more mindful of the importance of an intentional process of integration, support, and recognizing that people are in integration for various things. So I seek to hone in and identify when I sit with a person in any type of session, what's happened with them and what are they integrating from so that I can give them the care that's needed and the support. And this is also behind all the events I do in Tulum. It's a
Right.
conglomerate of what I see is needed.
So, I hear a lot about the importance of integration with all kinds of plant medicines. But how does that manifest itself? Is it working with a guide? Is it like when you say integration events, is it like being aware of certain things that are happening that are kind of as a result of you having taken the medicine? Like, what does it look like? What can somebody
So it
expect?
can look like many things, but I think the word integration, maybe we think of like integration in the United States and how that was
Yeah.
beneficial or not beneficial for us. But really think of integration as incorporation and digestion. Okay.
Okay.
You took something into your being and then you're becoming something new. So to
Mm,
fully function in that newness, right? there's a time period where you should be cared for, where you're aware that you did something different, and that you look at the things that are happening that have shifted in your life, and you could recognize, well, this may be as a result of something I did to shift internally. How can I make the best, return on investment on
Yeah.
the choice that I made to see this thing fully through? So after a baby is birthed into the realm, there's a time where you don't let too many people come near the baby, right?
Yes.
You protect it. Only a certain food that the baby's going to be eating if you're really
Yes.
cognizant. And it's because you
Yeah.
also have an intention and you have an insight as to what's needed for the baby to come into form in the way that's beneficial for the child. And so my journey, you may have heard me call myself a doula, which is typically given to women, but I'm going by my own thing because
Yeah.
a doula is similar to a husband. A husband is, that's the term is really in farming, right? You understand the cycles of the land and the things that are happening in this ecosystem. And you've
Mm.
been given the opportunity to be a steward in recognizing and continuing to learn about those cycles and
Yeah.
allowing those cycles to unfold to the best that you can with the energy and attention that you put into it. So a doula is kind of the same, but I'm more of a doula for intimacy, connection, and integration, right? And so I know that people need to rest and to relax. And so I'm like, all it's taken is someone else to know that and to create a space. And then I'm imbuing the space with the intention and the medicine and the energy of who I am and the truth of who I am, however it shows up, so people can receive that activation, which then is giving them that cariña, as they say
Yeah.
here, that care. And it's
Cariño.
different, when you receive it from the masculine and the feminine. So I'm kind of balanced in a way, but also I can kind of tweak it. So I'm still working the medicine, but the
Yeah.
medicine of myself,
So
incorporating those other medicines in the space.
sorry to interrupt. I'm
So,
so, it's a pretty weighty and pretty um heavy statement to say that Iboga helped cure your cancer. You
yeah,
also described people using it for addiction, which is a big, big problem that a lot of people have.
everyone has.
How, yes, true. So, how do you, just very practically speaking, and I hope this isn't a dumb question,
No
how do
question.
you know that Iboga cured your cancer?
I went and got tested afterwards. And
Okay.
also, interestingly enough, when I went and got tested, and they said, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "I'd like to get all my blood tested and test for, to see where I'm at with everything." And
Yeah.
they're like, Why?" And I'm like, "I just do the test." I went to Africa. I sat with the medicine, and they flipped. The first doctor that I spoke to was like, Iboga is a Schedule 1 drug, so they know what Iboga is." And
Yeah.
then they were like, and it's not known for curing cancer, but I've spoken to another uh, lady shaman, so to say, and forgive how I say that, but another woman
Yeah.
who's deep in the medicine, who's also from that region, who helped to cure her mother of cancer as a child. So it's
Yeah.
not known. It's not known. People don't go, "Oh, let me sit with Iboga for cancer." Most of
Yeah.
what it's known for is for helping to cure, to
Addiction.
help people get on beyond addiction, to highlight the source of why they're addicted and shine light on it, which opens up the door for a cure.
So
And
you're taking the
it's
test.
also known
What were
for,
the results of the test?
I was in the best shape of my life, like oddly, like everything came back. The only thing they wouldn't give me was my blood type for some bizarre reason, but I found that out later. And all of my blood tests came back like pure, perfect, everything's good. The only thing that shifted was my blood pressure was different, but that medicine increases your blood pressure. So I think, in this chat, see, here's the thing that happens with Iboga.
Yeah.
Talking about it. There's the mystical aspect of the experience, which is now becomes the true, and then there's the regular questions of, okay, does the medicine feel like? How much would I need to take? How much per body weight? Like there's typical questions that would be generated, and then
Yeah.
there's the names that have been given. There's Iboga, and then there's the Western edition. As people come and they discover that it exists, and then they claim they discovered it, so to say,
Yeah.
or whatever that they tack their last name on, which is protocol, so I'm
Yeah.
not upset because that also helps to spread it. And so these medicines have been around for who knows how long. Maybe since the beginning of this
Time. Yeah.
this space that we could call a matrix, and it's of the trees, and it has a connection to us as human beings, especially those of us navigating in Africa, but really all beings, if they so choose to connect with it. And it's concerned with truth, right? Because it's holding a lot of information. So people
Yeah.
seek out the medicine and have to deal with what it is to get to the truth. And then it does, I believe it does alter the personality a little bit because after that, see, that's always been something I've been interested in. So my
Hmm.
journey was not harrowing, although it was difficult because I surrendered to it. I surrendered to the medicine. Yeah.
Um, so Ezra, you answered
Yes.
one of the questions that was asked, that's
Uh-huh.
also very commonly asked. About 300 people ask every month, is Iboga legal? Which you answered in the US, no. But I do want to come back to um, where I think you were going. But um, you talked about it helps, it basically, the way it works is getting to the root, the truth.
It's the root bark.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
some people will understand what you mean, like from a spiritual standpoint.
Mm.
But I wonder if, do you have a point of view, or is there knowledge on what's happening scientifically with the the actual Iboga itself? Like, what is happening in your body?
Oh, lovely. I want to say it in a way that's more simplified. And also, if you feel
Okay.
to just run through the questions, we can also do that, and I can give you shorter answers. But I
Okay.
also because this medicine's dear to my heart, I want to speak to it from like my channel and my individual
Yes.
experience as well.
Yeah.
So what Iboga does is you create when you have an addiction, you're creating a groove and a gap between the normal functioning within your mind, right?
Okay.
In your personality. When
Yeah.
we had in the standing wave that a person is, right? You're a culmination of blinking in and out of existence, holding a belief, solidifying that waveform, and then the waveform dissipates, so to say. Then
Hmm.
you move on energetically from what you manifest. So what Iboga does is it brings you back to the beginning state, right?
Mm.
First come in, and can you take you further back to the state before ancestral, used for ancestral healing. So if someone's reaching out for Iboga, here's the things that I see typically. They're navigating with addiction, they're navigating with issues with their nervous system. They have
Okay.
something going on in regards to CPTSD or PTSD,
Okay.
complex or post-traumatic stress disorder. They are seeking to have an experience of, the other kind, and they're open to what's been touted as the most difficult experience and the strongest psychedelic known to man. That's the
Okay.
reputation that yoga has. And they're just curious, or
Yeah.
they wanna try something. Other reasons why they take it is because it can be used as an aphrodisiac as well, right? It,
Okay.
it it enhances maybe some sexual prowess, and so a lot of folks from other countries that are interested in ginseng have been poaching the medicine because it's considered like a super ginseng, right?
I
As it
see.
is similar. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of other health benefits. It increases acuity of your hearing, sight, vision, because it's opening you up, and it also in the ceremony can open you up. The first one that you go through, it opens up your uh your psychic senses essentially. So it opens up to clairvoyance. If you're already clairvoyant, then it's gonna
It's
expand
going to
that. I was already
enhance it.
clairvoyant beforehand. And so, but there's ways that you could block it, life blocks it. So it definitely enhanced it. And I have almost to the point where, someone says, "Oh, I have a gut feeling." Well, my gut
Yeah.
feeling was like a stabbing pain if I don't listen. Sometimes it's
Ooh.
very light, but after the ceremony, it was like I was shown different timelines and pathways to follow, not just the beginning thing, but the end of a matter. And I had a choice to make. And there's no
Yeah.
getting around it, no BSing, because the voice of your higher self is now speaking. And it's not speaking in a whisper. It's like, hey, is this what you want? Really? And then now talk to your body. And so
Wow.
so it really
Is
pushed me
that
to get
why
in there.
you think, like that woman, you said the woman who first introduced you to it, she said she shuddered when she mentioned Iboga. Is it because it's so intense? Like of all the plant medicines, why does it have that reputation?
No, I think people shudder. Just they have an idea of what's ahead of them, perhaps, because
Yeah,
she's a strong woman. Like I have a lot of respect and reverence for her as well. And I was like, but there's some ways that we're not ready for some truths. So
right.
I don't want to speak anything against her because she opened up so much more for me. She's the one that was like, hey, this is a path that you're going to be on. And I was like, hey, kick rocks, because I was just coming out of the work. And I was like, you guys with all the fairy wings and tiaras and all this, woo woo stuff. And I just done, working with the military. And, I'm like, hey,
You've been
no
bombed,
sorcerer, you know,
and
I'm just saying, like, I was like, no, but the first ceremony that I sat in, she had me holding space in my first ayahuasca ceremony. So I didn't even know what that term was. I was like, holding space?
yeah,
What is it, space? So I had jokes. But in the end, she saw something in me and she helped me to bring some of that out by introducing me to things. And she was there. She was my partner at the time, plant partner at the time. But the medicine also showed two directions for us, and it was
yeah,
right to the T, because that's also like sometimes you're connecting with someone and it's giving you a hint to the journey that you're on.
yeah.
And so yeah, like that medicine is a consciousness. Everything here is a consciousness. Yeah.
So, let's look at the next question. There's a lot of questions around where to buy Iboga.
But yes.
Can you buy Iboga in the US? Obviously, a lot of people um, are interested.
Mm,
How to grow Iboga? Which of those do you want to
sure.
tackle?
I think I'll tackle all of them. How to buy Iboga. You could order Iboga online. Now, for me, what I've been curious about, I'm interested in the lifeline. This is a plant that
Okay,
has different potencies as it gets older. So I sat with the
okay,
medicine from, I believe, a 60 or 70-year-old tree, right? That's not that old in terms of trees, but it's pretty old
yeah,
in terms of what people are having access to because the medicine's been kind of endangered. And
I
so,
see.
so they've spread the ability for people to get more, and you can get it in some of the neighboring countries in an attempt to preserve the medicine and also to grow, but it's being grown in a different way. The
Okay,
medicine, the iboga can be grown in other places, but mainly, it's there's something special about receiving it from Gabon and from that region in Africa and the Congo. And so my preference is to receive the medicine from there or Cameroon and to get it where there's no hijinks because I'm serving it as well.
I
Another
see.
person would find someone online who has it for sale, and I believe the world should have it and they order it and they begin to journey with it. But my call for it is there's a level of purity that has to happen. So I've ordered medicines from people, and there's been certain things that happen where they were seeking to extort me, and I just forfeit the money, you know,
Yeah,
for a lot of money, because for me, all the medicine has to come a certain way. So I'm interested in from the person who handles it as best as I know and who sends it to me. If anyone tries any extortion or funniness, you can still serve the medicine, but I'm not doing it that way. And the
yeah.
same with the bufo I get right from the Comcac, and so my sources are I'm willing to pay more. The services with the Iboga, it's an expensive ceremony, but it also requires a lot from the facilitator. So I don't leave any space for foolery on my end or any like uh, that lack-minded scarcity. It costs what it costs, and there's no scarcity coming from me. I can pour my home into you, however that
Right,
looks in the time. And I have a little bit more leeway with the bufo, but because it's less of an expensive experience, but I know
right.
how to work with them both, and I do. Yeah.
Do you, and I'm probably asking a leading question here, but um, I mean, is it the same as people just buying mushrooms and then having mushrooms at home, on their own, or do you recommend a way that people,
Uh,
if they want to do Iboga, like should I
I
just be
think it
buying it
depends on.
online and then
Well, there are some people who've healed themselves in the
okay,
experience, but you're opening up certain things. So,
yeah,
right, Africa, people just we have a different spiritual life in terms of what is present for us, what we're open to. And this can be, I'm not just saying just Africans, but in that
Yeah.
continent, in that space, there are things that the realm is open in a different way. And there are things that people are used to. So
Yeah.
dealing with the medicine that's coming from that space, and it's known to be very powerful. My suggestion is people really tune in with themselves, get some advice, and it's a case by case thing. People are going to order it and have the medicine just like they do with mushrooms and have their experiences. But just
Okay.
because you take it like that doesn't mean you may have the experience that would come with a ceremony, that would come with someone holding the space for you who's working with the essence in a certain way. You just may be introducing yourself to it. And that
Right.
even happens with Gabon. Even in the country, there's people who have the tree growing, they take the bark, they chew the bark to have whatever, and they use it for a certain thing, you know.
Got it.
So I'm not judging, I'm just saying there's a unique reason for each person being called. It's great to have a discussion about it, to seek
Okay.
some guidance, and then to really vet the person who's going to facilitate if you're having it facilitated. And I deal in the space of, and I've turned people down. Like I've been really like, also just because I have to preserve myself. It's a heavy investment. So
Right.
I think it's important that all of these things, people know all of the things are going to happen, no matter what. People are going to gain access to it. They're going to use
Yeah.
it. I'm not one to be selfish with it or whatever. Just if it comes through me, it's going to come a certain way because that's my agreement with that consciousness. And what I'm seeing is people healed of addiction and being able to move through their PTSD with all the medicines that I work with. And ultimately, they're working with the medicine of themselves. So it's about choices and really being honest with yourself, which is a difficult thing in these times.
I love
But
that. Working with the medicine of yourself.
yes,
So, so Ezra, if somebody comes to you, how do you make a determination whether it's best for them to do combo or bufo or iboga? What are some of the, are there some reasons that you would choose one over another?
I think it's first that we look at the counterindications, right?
Okay.
I'm like, oh, let's look at what's been going on in your life. What are you contending with? Okay, where are you at health, physiologically, psychologically? What's the history there? I ask
Yeah.
questions. Yes.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is, okay, what is your intention? What's the outcome? And then I'm
Mm,
also able to kind of see. Sometimes people don't say they've had a situation with molestation or they've been abused or
mm,
other things, but there's things that you can still see in a person. So I'm listening, I'm chatting with them, I'm feeling it. Some things can actually be resolved with just talking. That's why I do the soul sessions.
yeah.
And then because there's always stacks, right? Sometimes really there's energies and things that you've had going on in yourself that need to be released through sharing and being witnessed. That's one
Right.
thing.
Mm,
Then there are people with real health issues. There are people who are beat down by their addiction
yeah.
and they're losing everything in their life. And so Iboga is great for helping to create the space, but then there's more to it. So I really have a holistic approach. And if someone comes to me, the first thing that I'm wanting to do is what they call triage. I want to know who they are, what they've been through. I want to feel into what they're not telling me. And then I want to tell them as much as I can about the medicine as it relates to what they're speaking to specifically. And so someone who's dealing with lymphatic issues, I would say maybe you want to sit with combo. Maybe that's all you need. Maybe you just need to fast. So I
Yeah.
don't use a number for everything. Not everything's a nail to me, you know. And so I'm really filling in to see what's more ideal. And so if someone's really needed a heavy detox, combo is really great. Some combo has been known to also help cure some people of cancer. I was introduced
Right.
by a person who had stage 4 cancer, and that's the one who introduced me to combo,
Wow.
beforehand. Yeah, she was able to heal that and begin to share the medicine in Florida. And so it's like I really do it a case by case basis. And we could say Bufo, called the God molecule. This is for a very heavy expansion and in a way that you could skip. It's dissociative, so you could skip over the subconscious and the ego's ways of stopping in some cases and really have an experience that takes you outside of the governors of what it is to be human into the reality of what it is to be. And it can feel good, it can be also scary for some people. And then with you still there? Yeah, with combo,
Yeah.
this is a purgative, right? And really, you can throw up on all three. Purge, it can cleanse. So these
Yeah.
medicines are cleansing, this is why I like the three. They have very similar effects, but to different uh, levels. They're
Okay.
medicines that come in, that cleanse, that help to restore you back to more of a pristine state and give you the opportunity in that whole process. And same with ayahuasca, to really look at what's come up, what's come out, and like feel yourself after you're sick and you feel good again. Oh, don't you feel good? So it's like to really feel yourself and to remember what it's like to be clean, so to say.
Yeah. So clean physically, or so is it um like a
Physically,
heightened fast, or also
sure.
clean mentally? Like,
Energetically, which will then translate to all of them.
uh,
You could still be in a state now. The integration is important because you've taken yourself and you've had an experience, and then now you're back in the human body. You
yeah,
know, you expand outside and you come back. You have this expansive experience. Then how do you function with that when you're back on the bus? Like Savan Bomar would say, you're back on the bus with the smelly guy. Or
yeah,
this happens in Tulum, right? And everywhere. So we're in a space where things are going on, business as usual. How do you begin to function again in that space? You go off in the military. How do you come back and function when you just experience a wholly different reality than other people?
yeah.
And folks are coming at you a certain way, and you're like, whew, you know? And so this happens with the medicine as well. Yeah.
And I guess this is why a lot of when I speak to a lot of you guys, you mention you got to be called. Um, and then because of what you just mentioned too, it's important what happens after, because if you're really seeking to transform yourself, or even if that wasn't your intent, you
Uh-huh.
are transformed once you've had,
You've had an
you
experience.
know, with
And
it.
if I
Yeah.
can
But
say,
then,
yeah. This thing, like, you don't have to be called. This is your life. I look at it differently because I'm one to deal in truth. So what feels more true to me is we're here, we have the opportunity to make choices. There are many things laid out before us,
yeah,
and sometimes you have preset a choice that's going to lead you. You made another choice at some other point, whether it was while you're incarnate or not, to go through an experience to bring you into lessons that are helping the progression of your soul, the knowing of the consciousness that's beyond this body, to have the
yeah,
experience reflecting upon itself. And I have was called into this, but I had to go through all these things. Another person may say, "Hey, that looks cool. I want to try it." And
yeah,
that opens up the door. So really, I still feel like it's about choice, because I could have said I ran from it for sure in terms of serving it, but I still was like, "No, man, let me just, I know this can help someone. I know this has helped me, and
yeah.
let me journey a little bit deeper." And then, yeah. And so I think both, really.
Okay.
That's the most important thing for me to say.
There are a lot of questions. I'm literally going to read them all because they're all kind of the same theme.
Bust them out.
Is, can Iboga cure anxiety? Can Iboga make you crazy?
Uh,
Can Iboga cause you to act strung out? Um, does Iboga permanently stop withdrawal?
uh,
I guess we could
Great.
separate the anxiety piece. Can Iboga cure anxiety?
It can help to cure anxiety, but that's a combination of the medicine, facilitator, your integration practices. Because it's going
Okay.
to speed up. For one, you have to check cardiovascular health. In a ceremony, I have to check a person's pulse. And they have to be
Oh,
honest with me. If they're on opioids or something else and they lie about it, they
yeah,
have to worry about heart issues as well,
yeah,
because it's speeding things up. And so you can have both, right? If you're taking things like mushrooms, you take them in the wrong setting, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you can tweak out. And so keep in mind, as a psychedelic, it's going to alter your perception of reality, and it's going to bring things to the surface. So it's really setting, as they say, and then I'm
okay,
going to throw in support and integration. Setting, support, and integration. And this is, again, having a holistic approach and long term, right? I tell people, hey, we're connected once you sit with me. My prices are like, hey, you're sitting with me in ceremony, but really I'm only going to serve this medicine to you if you're willing to be accountable, that you're making the choice to sit with it, and then you're
yeah,
going to hold yourself accountable to have an integration session with me. I don't need to be on you all the time, but I just want you to know, and I want you to at least one time take the opportunity to reach back to me and let me know what's going on with you in your life, because I'll help you to clear. And I've just been the success for everyone who's chosen to do this. And some people, because they reach back to me a year later
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
but I let them know off the bat, the door's open. You can't do that with the doctor who birthed you. You know, like this is a rebirth scenario. And so this is something that I feel called to do. And, it keeps me busy, but I'm also able to really have a different perspective on what's happened with people after they've journeyed with the medicine. So what I realize is that I'm holding space for people to open up to their victory lap. That's what I call it. And everyone who sat with me has probably heard it, but they can also attest to like, wow, my life shifted. Not as is not shifting their life. They're calling me into their life and helping me to write a part of their story. I'm holding the space for them to meet each other. And I'm just saying, hey man, let me just keep in touch and see what's going on with you, because I know things are going to come up. As a doula, I know things are going to come up for them. And so, because I've seen a lot of those things and I didn't have that support, I make it a point to try to offer them that support, because then it's like they set, they come in
Yeah.
strong. Yeah.
So the other set of questions were all centered sort of around, can it make you crazy? Is there
Yeah.
a risk of, is there a risk of Iboga enhancing your mental instability?
Yeah. I'm going to say yes. And most people are going to answer yes. And
Yes.
again, it's because what environment do you go into afterwards? So what it does is open you up, right? After the ceremony, there was much silence, and I was encouraged not to go out to the streets and into the world. So it's
Okay.
not that it's a psychoactive drug. So people think of
Yeah.
someone on an acid trip, they have an experience. It's not so much that the medicine itself makes you crazy, right? These medicines they're meant to help you. Their intention, they're like, hey, we're here, eat us, experience
Yeah.
us. We're going to have this connection with your body and help get things, and we're going to show you stuff. So we're already in a crazy state
Yeah.
typically, and we just don't know that. We're participating in an insanity of lies and deception, etc. And so it gives us an opportunity to come into sanity, which might seem crazy. So that's one reason why I say yes. But the other thing is, because you're in an open state, if you sit with any of these medicines, it could be marijuana, right?
Yeah.
And then you're open, you're not aware of what you're doing with yourself, and you don't have that support or some kind of safety for your vessel,
Safety. Yeah.
then what's happening out here will affect you in a different way. And then it might be crazy making, because that's the truth of it. The truth is, there's crazy shit going on. Excuse me for cursing, but all over the place. And so to see it with, if I was an alien dropping down into this space, in a sense, you might think, oh, this is quite bizarre. There's some bizarre things going on here. And we can see this even if you go to another country, right? And if you saw something bizarre that really affected you to a deep space, it might reverberate in your brain. And because you don't know how to make sense of it, then now when we use that term crazy, this is applicable, right? Because you haven't figured out how to digest it. You've got
Yeah.
indigestion. That's really what craziness is. It's a form of indigestion, really.
So let's ask a very practical question. And then I want to go and ask a few questions about Bufo and Combo. So
Absolutely. And
the
I'll just stick with, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go for it.
um so some people are asking, well, how much does Iboga cost?
Yeah. It cost itself. Can it be the cost of the medicine itself can be somewhere from a couple of hundreds to thousand, depending on, scarcity and where you're getting it from.
Okay.
And then to sit in a ceremony can be anywhere from 3,500 all the way up to $10,000. So it really depends on what you're sitting through, if you're going for an initiation, because, and what your intention is. So if you're coming to sit to deal with drug addiction, well, that's going to require a certain level of attention,
Yeah.
training, precautions. So it's better for you to pay for the medicine and pay for a good session where someone's going to take all the precautions than to have to pay the price later, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
do
that's
want to
the
give,
range. The range with
okay.
me is from 3,500 to 10,000 per
Okay.
cert.
And they can come to you as yet for healing in what areas?
In terms of addiction, PTSD, if they want to have an experience of sitting with the medicine to get into some ancestral things as well, which can create a lot of healing.
Yeah.
to have a safe experience of journeying with the medicine at a level of flood dose. And if I'm doing this with other Buddhists, other people, then we can do something further. And there's a possibility in the future that I do seek to gather people who want to go through the initiation and take them and go on a trip to Gabon and have the initiation. And that's really going to depend on as I'm feeling into, what's actually happening there
Yeah.
and where's the heart of the people, because every heart can be infiltrated by certain things. Is it safe? Because I would be taking Westerners over there, and Westerners go on their own. It's mostly there's not a lot of Black African Americans who are going,
Yeah.
to take this because what the heck is that? We have religious structures around that keep us from going to access. I was already on a search for truth, but there are people in the continent who are journeying with the medicine, and maybe they don't have some of the other benefits of the Western. So with me, there's both, right? I'm
Yeah.
looking at it from a traditional lens with a lot of respect, and also understanding what it is to come from this side of the world after that Atlantic trip, so to say. And uh, the intention is really just for the cultivation of the person. It's
Yeah.
beyond things, yeah.
That the idea of taking people back to Gabon, I think sounds amazing. And Ezra, with respect to Iboga and what you just mentioned, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. Folks can find me on Instagram, Epic. That's Epic EPIC underscore Ezriyah EZRIYAH. And that's probably the best way. I'm also on Facebook as Ezriyah Ben Derek, which is Derek is my birth name, like Derek. And that's just Ezriyah. You can look me up at ezriyah.com. So I try to make it simple, right?
Yeah.
So those are the ways. And so you'd find me here on Instagram, reach out to me, and then we plan some time to sit and chat. I have a nice, time to drop in with the person who's interested. And if it's aligned, then we can move forward. So
Um,
mostly it's been word of mouth. I haven't really publicized a lot of what I do
yeah.
because, I do a lot of things. Yeah,
It's I imagine it's a sensitive topic, but truth cannot be stopped one way or the other.
that's right.
Um, you know, it's just like the light. So
Beginning and the
um
end.
yeah, I mean it's probably not a coincidence that more people are discovering plant medicines and at a time when there's so much craziness that's going on with the world.
Uh-huh.
You know, you mentioned the Matrix a couple of times.
Sure.
Do you believe that the Matrix exists, and what's the role of plant medicine in either
Well,
awakening people or not?
I think these medicines, these consciousnesses, right? They have been here for a long time in whatever this is. We call it a matrix because,
Mhm.
there's some mathematics to the way that this thing unfolds. It's a simulation, but we're part of the simulation. It's real for us, in our senses, just the same way that you can also throw on certain goggles and hop into the metaverse, right? So we're in another extension. And what these medicines help to do, as they've shown up in this realm or this space that we're in, is they remind us of who we are by connecting with us because they would have been around when we were maybe in a different state and help to enhance us to the truth of what we are. Some of them, yeah. And so when you utilize them properly, you come into that memory, and that memory informs your belief, and that belief sets a pattern for the way that you actually express yourself here, and that's needed. And so we
Yeah,
are constantly being bombarded with, I say that sometimes we become self-imposed imposters, meaning that there are things imposed upon us based on knowledge about us that we have forgotten, that manipulate us into being something other than we really are. And we deal
yeah,
with all this illness because the truth of our body still comes through and says that's not good and it rejects it. So when you
yeah.
come into some levels of truth, you stop aging the same way. You experience the kind of love that the true love that you've been calling out for, and you know it because it has a certain taste that you
Mhm.
can't, you know, and it's like this. That's what it is from my experience.
Sounds amazing. I have my own question I'm going to throw in here
Yes,
because
please.
because I'm curious. And I think part of my curiosity is probably my own journey. Um, but one of the things that I am curious about is it a continuous, like once you experience taking combo or bufo or iboga or even ayahuasca, is it something like um I have incorporated fasting, for example, into my lifestyle for the
Powerful.
last, yeah, and it's like, okay, I'll do it every quarter, and it has some very spiritual and mental clarity effects that work for me. And the longer I go without doing it, I realize, oh, okay, it's about time for another fast. Is plant medicine kind of like that? Or um, is there a risk of becoming addicted to these things, or are these not addictive?
I mean,
Or
Iboga
like,
is not, it's not an addictive experience, it's, unless
okay.
you, even if you're a masochist, it's just because it's getting down to the truth. And not that it has to be that way as well. So, like the ceremonies that I hold, they're not like, they can be a little bit difficult, but they're not, it's really, again, I think a lot falls on the facilitator. What I'll
Okay.
say is every consciousness, because you're an eternal being, having a short period experience within this place, this space and time, right?
Yeah.
You have your experience, and so it really depends on where someone's trying to go, how they want to care for their body, because you still have to look at the body. All of these medicines have an effect on the body.
Yeah.
Everything can be positive up to a point, you know,
Right.
right?
Right.
You can overdo it. So, like, really having that balance, that support in balancing how you're choosing to go about, and really identifying for yourself what is the intention, because you have an inclination for that spiritual experience, and you know that you resonate a certain way. Then when you start to feel yourself off, you choose to go back, and so the medicines
Yeah.
can be in that sense. But also
Okay.
because I was told by the medicine that we're the medicine, right? Then for me, it's like, hey, you can utilize them to a certain extent, but come back to the remembering that you have all this. What a person can experience with Bufo, right?
It's
They can
already within
experience
you.
through breathing. It's just, will you
Mm.
go that route? So these medicines are what could be called the back door. The
Mm.
front door, they're front door behaviors and ways that require a lot of discipline and practice and consistency for you to attain the same levels. But all you're doing is getting back to your real level of what you actually are. When you experience orgasm, that's what you are. When you experience all the things in the medicine, because we're everything, right? We're just tasting
Mm.
one expression of the everything that we are, these experiences. So if you want to have a certain state within your frame, then you may say with combo cleanses, you get dirty
Yeah.
again, you cleanse again, or
Mm.
can, okay, I'm in this clean state. What do I need to do to maintain this?
Maintain
Preventative
it.
medicine is the best. Most of these things, they're not preventative medicine. They're as a result of something. So if we can get back to the state, you may do these things many times, but getting back to the state, and fasting is one of them, because really, in truth, we don't even need to eat food as we are. But that's for another, Obsidian Soul Lounge. But we can, because we've come here to have the experience, you see?
100%. I
And
I
we're in a
I didn't
paradox.
believe that until I have experienced what it's like to go without and still and actually thrive.
Yeah,
You know?
I've done a fast for 28 days on water, and so I know what's like what shifts. And then when you have just a little bit of the actual food that your body should have, you come online and you're just as powerful as if you're way more powerful than if you had four Whoppers, which is
Yeah.
like how I thought as a kid. So we've been misinformed. We're in a place of a lot of nutricide, so to say, to quote Dr. Lila's book, Lila Africa. And yeah, there's everything here. This is my truth and what I've witnessed. And so because we're in a paradox with things that should go this way but are kind of funny, then it's really important to understand how to interpret the experience of what it is to be here, hence the metaphysics, why I
Yeah.
press for that. And then to say, hey, it could just not be that too. So it's an interesting place. It's a really funny place to be. Yet we still take lessons. And so
Yeah.
so I'm saying Everyone's going to have a different reason how they navigate with the medicine. If you're getting into your truth of, your incarnation, which you can access with the medicines, and you decide to hold to that, you may only need to do it once. You may sit with the medicine and say, I'm already there, which could be the truth. Or you may have a long way to go and seek other ways to do it. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, and this will be our last question because I've taken a lot of your time. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and we can do this again if you wish to.
Yeah. So if given that you are in the unique position of having experienced, I think I heard Bufo, Combo, ayahuasca, Iboga, you
Peyote,
have experience with mushrooms,
many different mushrooms.
right?
Uh, yeah,
So
MDMA, sassafras. Like I've journeyed with a lot of different medicines, but I don't make it a habit for sure, for the most
okay,
part.
so you've experienced a lot of medicines,
Huh?
and you've also had health issues that you've, you know, been cured of.
Yes.
If you had the ability to kind of like wave a magic wand and sort of like hit the reset button on how we live,
Uh,
how would you incorporate plant medicines into life? Because right now it seems like people come to plant medicines at their most desperate,
yeah. If I could hit the
right? Like,
reset.
how would you do it? Like, if you've got a
Oh no.
newborn baby
Yeah.
and the newborn baby comes into this world and you have the ability to just to sort of like guide how, as opposed to doing life like we do, coming to it when we've screwed up or something's happened to us or we're addicts, or like, is there another way? if you
Yeah,
could
absolutely.
if you could like wave a magic wand and say, this is how people should,
If
you
I could
know
wave a magic wand, we would have our memories back, and we wouldn't have to ingest or take plant medicines. We could just talk to them like we're really able to do. Because some of us
mm,
can talk to plants. Think of Dr. Carver, right?
mm,
We have this because we are the plants. We're just moving. We're just the babies right now, you know.
mhm,
So, so to be able to talk to our ancestors that surround us and receive the wisdom from them and to be in harmony with them, we wouldn't have to do the same things. We could eat to have an experience, just like we could go on a date, or we could have a conscious relating, party or whatever. So it wouldn't be that you had to, it would just be a choice, and it wouldn't be because you were in some dire straits. It would just be
mhm,
because we come here to have the experience. But the same applies to how things are now. We've still come here to have the experience, and we're having it. And so it's like, yeah, if that would be how I would love it to be, but I also honor how it is because it's still serving its purpose, and they're still here and we're still here together. So just getting to the place of like, wow, this is beautiful. Oh, this is fucked up. Like it's both, right? And then where do you take with you? Because we're also creating the experience, and they're also creating it with us. Yeah.
beautiful.
I'd start us
on
off with that knowledge as parents.
on that note, thank you so much for joining us on Tulum Magazine.
So, welcome.
Tell us one more time how people can contact you.
Okay. So you can contact me by checking me out on Instagram at epic, that's EPIC underscore, that little score that's under,
Mhm.
Ezriyah, EZRIYAH. And then you can also find me on Facebook. Facebook, it's Ezriyah Ben, like BEN in the middle, and then Derek, DERRICK. Those would be the two best ways. Instagram's your best bet. And then if we go further, then you might get the WhatsApp. We'll see.
All right.
This
Thank
is
you
for
so
healing
much,
connections.
Ezra.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor.